The time is precisely 6:15 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News edited by Dulmin Samarasinghe and read by Chandima Veerakon. Headlines. Talks between the President and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party are successful. A cabinet paper will be submitted today to solve teachers' salary anomalies. The program to develop 100 cities at once will commence tomorrow under the patronage of the Prime Minister. The government will decide on rice prices next week. Another post-mortem ordered into the body of the girl who died at MP Rishad Bathyuddin's house. In news overseas, flooded London hospitals ask patients to stay away. In sports news, it's Tokyo Olympics. Tom Daley and Matty Lee win gold in men's synchronized 10-meter platform. Local stories in detail. The General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Dayasiri Jayasekara, said that they held discussions today with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on several current issues. Discussion took place on getting the participation of SLFP representatives for the governing process at divisional and regional level. State Minister Dayasiri Jayasekara said that attention was paid on the COVID pandemic and building the country's economy during the discussion, which lasted for more than 2.5 hours. The cabinet paper is scheduled to be submitted today to end problems related to teachers' salary anomalies. The Ministry of Education said that the discussion between teachers' trade unions and Education Minister will be held tomorrow. 77% of the teachers have been vaccinated so far. The program to develop 100 cities island-wide at once will commence tomorrow from Kurunegala, Hiripitiya town under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. 8 cities in the Kurunegala district have been selected for the project. Development of these cities is being implemented by the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing. The project aims to achieve several targets in the President's Vistas of Prosperity manifesto. Minister Mahinda Anandaludgamage says that the government will not allow to cause any injustice or loss to farmers. Fertilizer needed by the farmers for the next season will be provided without any shortage. He said that the subsidy will also be given. The minister said today that the government will decide on price of rice next week. The suspects, including wife of MP Rishad Bathyuddin, who were arrested in connection with the death of a girl with burn injuries at his house, have been remanded until the 9th of next month. They have been remanded after being produced in Colombo Magistrates Court today. Meanwhile, the magistrate has also ordered to exhume the body of the girl to conduct another post-mortem. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with local stories, the National Education Institute is performing a commendable task to continue education of school students amid the pandemic. Guru Gedara television educational program series is presented jointly by the Ministry of Education, Distance Education Promotion State Ministry, the National Education Institute and the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation. 6,200 programs have been produced. More than 5,000 programs have been telecast so far. Initially, it was allocated to teach main subjects of GCE ordinary level and advanced level examinations. It is now being implemented covering syllabuses of all grades. The programs have been compiled in Sinhala and Tamil languages, targeting 30 subjects of advanced level, 25 subjects of O-level, and 4 main subjects of primary education. The National Education Institute aims to produce television programs covering syllabuses of all subjects by the end of this year. It has taken steps to produce television programs to improve language and mathematics literacy of grade 1 and 2 students. Guru Gedara education programs are being telecast over Channel I and Netra over Rupavahini Corporation. The programs can also be watched through the NIE YouTube channel. It has been found that a large number of teachers are conducting tuition classes, although they have staged an online strike. It has been revealed that although they do not conduct online classes for students at government schools, they conduct online tuition classes. Meanwhile, the trade unions have informed to immediately stop online teaching of students in the northern and eastern provinces.
story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Continuing with stories, the Court of Appeal today is issued an order directing the Surveyor General to expedite the demarcation of physical boundaries of Muthurajavala Sanctuary to clarify the legal status. The Court of Appeal made this order under writ petitions filed by Colombo Archbishop Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit and Centre for Environmental Justice. Additional Solicitor General Sumati Dharmavardhana, President's Counsel appearing for the Attorney General, emphasized the necessity of having physically demarcated boundaries in respect of the Muthurajavala Sanctuary, citing this would resolve most of the issues relating to the petitions. The Mahavali Organic Cultivation Promotion Week will be implemented from today to the 31st of this month, with the aim of producing organic fertilizer with a standard for cultivations. Minister Chamal Rajapaksa said that laboratory facilities will be provided to produce organic fertilizer by modernizing Markandra Farm. The minister pointed out that the Mahavali Authority is entrusted with a huge responsibility when producing organic fertilizer. Deputy Director General of Health Services Dr. Hemantha Herath says that steps should be taken to control COVID-19 in order to prevent the spread of the Delta variant. He said that the spread of any variant can be prevented by following usual health practices. He said today that the virus can be controlled by wearing face masks, washing hands and refraining from gatherings. Electronic Broadcasters Guild has expressed its condolence on the demise of the chairman of the Capital Maharaja Group and renowned entrepreneur R. Raja Mahendran. It has pointed out that late Mr. Raja Mahendran took the local electronic media industry to new heights. He took steps to broaden its horizons. Chairman of the Guild, Asanka Jayasuriya, issuing the condolence message, has said that late Mr. Raja Mahendran always cooperated with the Guild. Moving on to the main news story. The Ministry of Health says that another 1,405 patients who were being treated for COVID-19 have been discharged after recovering from the illness. This increases the country's coronavirus recoveries to 269,007. Sri Lanka has so far confirmed 296,516 positive cases of COVID-19, while 23,410 patients infected with the virus are currently under medical care. The death toll due to the virus currently stands at 4,099. That ends the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight. The Ministry of Education said the GCE Ordinary Level Examination for the year 2021 has been postponed by a month. Minister of Education Professor G.L. Peris said the examination will be held in February 2022. The examination will commence on 21st February 2022 and continue until 3rd March 2022. Previously, the exam was scheduled to be held in January 2022. That ends Watchlight. We move on to World News now. The headlines. Flooded London hospitals ask patients to stay away. The UN says number of Afghan civilians killed in violence has risen to record levels. The US accused of demonizing China in high-level talks. 2 London hospitals have asked patients to stay away after their emergency departments were hit by flooding on Sunday. East London's Whipps Cross and Newham hospitals urged patients to use other AEs for urgent care. The ambulances are being redirected. Torrential rain has caused severe flooding in homes, roads and stations. London Fire Brigade said it had taken about 300 flooding-related calls in the space of a few hours. The UN says number of Afghan civilians killed or injured in escalating violence has risen to record levels in the first half of this year. A new report says Afghanistan has recorded more than 1,600 civilian deaths so far in 2021. That's a 47% rise compared to this time last year. And the UN warns that the number of deaths could rise still further. Afghan government forces have been fighting Taliban insurgents who now control large parts of the country. China has told the US to stop demonizing Beijing in their most high-level talks under President Biden. China's Vice Foreign Minister Xi Feng said relations had reached a stalemate because the US saw China as an imagined enemy. He is in talks with Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman, the most senior U.S. official to visit China in months. Mr. Biden has taken a hardline approach towards China, especially on issues like human rights and sanctions. That ends World News.
Development News is brought to you by Quality Matters Than Price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melba RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melba RB500, number one in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
Moving on to development news. The government will shortly develop 5 domestic airports at Sigiriya, Anuradhapura, Hinguraggoda, Koggala and Ampara to boost tourism. Sigiriya, Viravila, Koggala, Katukurunda, Anuradhapura, Ampara, Vaunia and Puttalam airstrips are being maintained by the Sri Lanka Air Force. Meanwhile, the airports of Jaffna and Ratmalana are maintained by Airport and Aviation Services Limited. That ends development news.
Development News was brought to you by Quality Matters Than Price. So as an engineer, I recommend Melba RB500. It's made with virgin billets using the latest technology. Melba RB500, number one in Sri Lanka. Truly Sri Lankan.
On to sports news. Tom Daley ended his long wait for an Olympic gold medal with a sublime display alongside Matty Lee in a nerve-filled men's synchronized 10-meter platform event at Tokyo 2020. In a nail-biting finale, the British pair watched on as Kao Yuan and Chen Aisen conducted their final dive and broke into wild celebrations when it became clear they had ended China's golden grip on the event dating back to 2000. Tom Pidcock won Great Britain's third Olympic gold today with a hugely impressive and dominant performance in the men's mountain bike cross-country race in Tokyo. The 21-year-old from Leeds moved to the front midway through and never let go of the lead as he finished ahead of Swiss world number 1 Matthias Flukiger and David Valero of Spain to take Britain's first gold in the sport. Australia's Ariane Titmus triumphed over 5-time Olympic gold medalist Katie Ledecky in the women's 400-meter freestyle on Monday. In a thrilling finale, the American world record holder was 0.66 seconds ahead at the halfway point. But Titmus managed to close the gap 50 meters before the finish, powering home for gold in the Tokyo Aquatic Center. That ends sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
On business news, CIC Holdings delivered strong revenues and profits for the 3 months ended in 30th June, maintaining the momentum it gained last year as the group's interest in multiple business lines stood to benefit from pandemic-created conditions. CIC, which has interest in agriculture produce, livestock solutions, health and personal care, industrial solutions and crop solutions, generated revenues of 9.05 billion rupees for the quarter under review, up 15% year-on-year. That ends business news.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of...
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And on economic news, the country's manufacturing activities, which plunged in April, shrank further in May after movement restrictions on and other economic activities were intensified, disrupting the smooth functioning of factories. The index of industrial production, the key gauge of the country's factory output, slipped to 93.2 index points in May from 93.9 index points in April, but up from 79.2 index points in the same month in 2020, when the factory started reopening from nearly 2 months long lockdowns. That ends economic news.
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And finally on the weather report, the Met Department says showers or thunder showers will occur at times in western, Sabaragamuwa and central provinces and in Galle and Matra districts. Several spells of showers will occur in northwestern province. Fairly strong winds up to 50 km per hour and gusting up to 60 km per hour can be expected in the western slopes of the Central Hills, North Central and Northwestern provinces and in Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. That ends the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. Talks between the President and the Sri Lanka Freedom Party are successful. A cabinet paper will be submitted today to solve teachers' salary anomalies. The program to develop 100 cities at once will commence tomorrow under the patronage of the Prime Minister. The government will decide on rice prices next week. Another post-mortem ordered into the body of the girl who died at MP Rishad Batiuddin's house. In news overseas, flooded London hospitals ask patients to stay away. In sports news, it's Tokyo Olympics. Tom Daley and Matty Lee win gold in men's synchronized 10-meter platform. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.